This is part 3 of a 4-part series of preparing to pre-fish for a September tournament at Roosevelt Lake. I hope you watched the first 2 videos, and I have one more to go besides this one, so please enjoy. Hello, I'm Joe Michels, the owner of Fish Point, and this is our media channel. Welcome. In this video, I'm going to talk about fishing main lake structure with plastics. So I'm going to cover jigs, worms, and some Texas style baits. Okay, so let's get started. So September in Roosevelt still reminds me of summer. It's generally still quite warm there. The water temperatures are warm. The fish are probably on structure. Not the only place they are, obviously, but if they are in the main lake, they'll be on structure. So I want to go after them with certain types of baits. And those baits are going to be jigs, worms, some Texas style, and of course there's always a drop shot. Okay, but I'm not going to talk much about the drop shot because I'm looking for bigger bites. I'm fishing a tournament and I want to get bigger bites, so I'm going to think about throwing a little bit bigger size baits. One of my favorite baits to throw are jigs. Okay, this is a football jig. It has a weed guard. It happens to have a purple weed guard, which is, something I'm playing around with. But this is a Yamamoto double tail and skirt. It's on a 1/2 ounce jig head. Perfectly great size, like a good place to start. And I like, I've done very well over the years on this type of a bait. Now, generally there's different sizes and different types. So this is definitely a football head, where this one is sort of a head that stands up, but also is a little pointed. So in theory, it's going to move through brush better, and that's what we're going to be fishing. The reason I'm needing weed guards is because Roosevelt Lake's going to be full of brush from 0 all the way down to 25, 30 feet, let's say. You got to be able to get the bait through that, and that's why I'm using stand-up wood jig, if you want to call it that, with weed guards. Now, so these are 2 perfectly great examples, some different colors. Here's a bait I've shown you before. It's from Fish Lab. It's called the Kick and Craw. I've used this on Saguaro and Apache Lake, and I've caught like 4 or 5 fish on it, including 3 3-pounders. It's still holding together, but again, it has an open hook, so probably not going to fish that at Roosevelt at the moment. But here's the brand, and here's what the packaging looks like. So I tore off the name, but it's Fish Lab. This bait is right here. As you can see, that's a pretty interesting bait. I like it because it has its own skirt, okay, and it's a 2-tone thing. And notice it looks quite different. It's certainly got appendages like a crawdad, and I like that. And I'll just stick that on one of these jig heads. Take this one, for example, stick it on there, and then I'm ready to roll. Now, this is a pretty good sized bait. And again, I'm thinking better fish. Bigger baits, better fish. Well, that may not be the case, and you might have to downsize. So they make what it looks to be here a 3.5 inch size, and this is like 4.5 inch size. So, take this, put it on a 3/8 ounce football head, and here I'm going to go for 1/2 ounce up to 1 ounce, and give it a shot. I do like these. I'm going to be fishing these a lot more. Now, let's not forget, I am 100% behind Yamamoto double tails with skirts. Been using them for decades. Nothing wrong. I'll still use that. Now let me tell you a story about my early days of bass fishing in the Arizona Bass Club back in the late 80s. There's a gentleman in the club. His name was Bill, and I don't remember his last name, and he drove a Hydrosport bass boat. And he always fished 1 ounce jigs when the fish were on structure. Always 1 ounce jigs when they were on structure. I remember him constantly doing very well, catching 3-pounders. San Carlos Lake was full of really nice fish. He'd come in win a tournament because he had, a bag of 3 and 3.5 pounders. And I was just a young guy, and I'm like, oh, what are you using? Oh, I'm using a 1 ounce jig. Wow, a 1 ounce jig? Are you fishing really deep? He's, no, I'm fishing 10, 15 feet. And at the time, I'm very like, what's going on? I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't know. Were they biting it? Could you feel them bite? He goes, no. I never feel a bite. And now I'm quite confused, and I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, oh, I always fish a 1 ounce jig on slack line. I throw it out there, hits the bottom, and I move it and I give it slack line, because that's when the fish pick it up. And I don't want the fish to detect that they're hooked up to a line or something. Well, all right. I learned from that, and that's how I fish jigs. This is a 1 ounce jig. It's pretty good sized, right? And here it's comparing it to a 1/2 ounce. You can see the difference in size. And one of the reasons you fish a 1 ounce jig is because not necessarily you need to go deep, as was mentioned by Bill, but that you're dragging things on the bottom and you're stirring up the bottom and you're attracting fish. So that's a perfectly great thing to try. Take this bait here and hook it up with this particular bait, and you can see that you're going to have yourself a pretty good sized bait. In line with that, I got a couple jigs here that are quite different. Check this one out. This has a silicone skirt that I tied up, and it has a straight body. What I'm going for here is bait, like a bait fish on the bottom, kind of eating off the bottom. So when I'm dragging this along the bottom, with a straight tail, looks very much different than a crawdad looking thing, right? Very much different. And so this is a totally different look. It's a really good, really big bait. Again, if a bigger fish wants to eat it, fantastic. This also happens to be, this is a 1 ounce jig pointed, as you can see there. And again, should get through brush better. And when it lands, for the most part, it probably will land like that. It'll land sitting like that with the tail up. Okay, the rod I'm going to use is the Legend Tournament Warhorse. It's 7 foot 5 inches. It's medium heavy with a fast action. And I'm going to be using a very fast reel here. This is a Revo 9-to-1 reel. I can really throw the baits a long ways. You know, 7 foot 5 gives me a lot of leverage. At the same time, okay, when I'm fishing it on the bottom and I get a bite and I may be out on a long cast, because sometimes when I fish structure, I like making long casts and trying to figure out, are they in 10 foot, are they in 15 foot, are they in 25 foot as I drag it off of points or something. When I get that, I want to be able to, I want the leverage. I want to be able to get that leverage and get that hook set, and then I want to be able to take up line really fast. If you need to downsize, they're biting craws. Maybe in the morning you're catching them on, you know, a good sized jig. Heck, maybe even caught some on this, but then they sort of stop biting. As the day goes on in September, it can get that way. Sometimes you need to downsize. This is a big bite college craw. It's 3.5 inches long. I have it hooked up. It's hooked up weedless, if you will. It has a little tiny jig head that's built in. Not only can you throw it this way with a jig like this, you can also, of course, hook it up Texas style. Perfectly fine way to do it. I'm just playing around with different head styles just to try them. I'll tell you a story about this. A couple years ago, we were fishing Roosevelt in May. We were on structure and we were fishing jigs and craws. I was throwing, you know, a football jig, probably this size, 1/2 ounce. My partner, he was catching them left and right on this little craw, and I'm not getting bit. They were not. I was throwing seriously right on top of the same spot, dragging it on the bottom. I was not getting bit. I know I wasn't getting bit. And I go, "What are you throwing?" "Well, I'm throwing this little 3.5 inch craw." So I went, "Okay, do you have some?" Put them on Texas style. I started catching fish. So sometimes you have to downsize to get bit. Now, what's interesting, I really like this particular big bite college craw. And you'll see here I have another one that's a little bit bigger. It's a different profile, you know, with the Yamamoto and the skirt and all that. It's just a different profile. And sometimes they want that. So, you know, those are the types of crawdad style baits that I intend to try when I go to Roosevelt Lake. When I'm fishing the lighter baits and smaller baits like this craw with a 3/8 ounce jig head or Texas style, I'm going to use the St Croix all-in. It's 7 foot 1 inch, again, medium heavy with a fast action. I just want to make a statement. I am not sponsored by St Croix, and I don't get free rods from them. And if you want to know why I keep talking about rods, it's because I think it's important to match the style of fishing and the baits with a rod, and I'm doing everything I can to give you some sound advice. Everybody's rod preference is their own, but this is what I think about using. So one of the reasons this rod is going to be used for both my fishing my jigs and the big worms with the heavier weights is that another thing I've been doing, and you've seen me using it on Saguaro Lake and Apache Lake, are big worms. Here's the worm I've been using. This is another big bite 8-inch worm, tilapia. And so let me show you that package quick. There's the big bite worm. Been doing quite well on this. It's summer, again, a bigger bite, a bigger bait should, quote, produce bigger bites. I'm going to be fishing this bait, trying it. I also have this one tied on. This is another very sizable bait, another 8-incher. It's a KDD Strike King. And again, I really like it. It's got multiple colors. It's a very big worm. And both of these worms, by the way, have variations on this tail. And I love that little tail, because when you pull the bait up, the tail kicks, and when it sinks, it kicks. So I like that. When I'm at Roosevelt going through the brush, I want to have to use the Texas style. I got a 4 or 5/0 hook right on here, and I'll probably put on a 3/8 weight. Texas style, I'm going to let it slide, even though you're going through brush. I'm going to pull it through and let it slide. Or I may have, sometimes you may want to just go up to 1/2 ounce, okay, to fish this bait. I'm also playing around with this bait. Again, I love this tail. This particular product is Bang Lures, okay? And I kind of like this worm as well. It's not as fat, okay? You can see a little more slender. I don't know if that matters, but I'm looking for big worms, and not as long. I'm looking for big worms that I can use to fish Texas style or open hook and just try to get bigger bites. If you're an Arizona fisherman, you really should subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be doing all kinds of great fishing techniques. I'm going to talk about it ahead of time. I'm going to do videos on, me pre-fishing, and I'm going to try to capture some video while I'm out fun fishing, and maybe I'll capture some video when I'm tournament fishing. We'll see, okay? Please subscribe, please like this video, and have a great day.